Okay, here we are. This is my name is Dave Olender, and this is my presentation to show how to set up Bartender to print an inventory. Here, I have it right here. Let's see. How to set up Bartender to print an inventory label when a job receipt to inventory quantity for a part is made. So I have this broken up into 9 steps, and as you can see, yep, hopefully you can see that. Yep. So the 9 steps are: create a gen inventory report style, copy the data definition and change the relationships, create an Epicor printer that points to the label printer, create an auto print BPM, create the job receipt to inventory, verify that the text file is created, then create a bartender label, add the database connection to the label, verify the bartender commander settings, and then test the label. So we won't be able to actually test the label here because I don't have the licensing for this, and the label printer would be it wouldn't work. So I had trouble getting it to work. Let's put it that way. So I won't actually be printing a label, but let me jot down my time here. 8:32. Okay. 8:32. Okay. So. All right, so those are the steps we're going to go through, and then of course I have a Microsoft Word document that details each of these steps, at least the way it's done here. I'm using the Elk River Machine server, same one I've used in the past, and so you may see that name pop up around here. So anyways, if anyone's interested in this document, I can send it to you. See me after the presentation, and I'll get it off to you somehow. I'll email it or whatever. So, all right, let's minimize that. All right, so let's get to it. Let's start with a report style. We're going to do a report style, and when we go to the report ID, what we want are there are specific report styles associated with the Bartender program. And they all start with GEN. So we have a generic inventory, generic job, generic PCID, generic QA, receipt, shipping. You get the idea. But there's only so many. And I don't know if it's still true, but it used to be that you could only use these report styles with Bartender. So that may still be true, may not. You'll see Bartender, if you're adding a BAQ report, you'll see Bartender as a possible selection, but it doesn't work. I'm not sure. I don't know why. It didn't work in the past. Maybe it does now. I don't know. Someone can correct me. So, but for our purposes, the Bartender styles are these. I think there's 7 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there's 7. So the one we're specifically going to be interested in is the generic inventory. So you might guess job, but it's really this is an inventory function, right? We want this scenario is we're going to do a job receipt to stock, and when we do that, when we take the quantity from the job and stick it into a shelf, we want a label to print automatically with the quantity and bin and maybe some barcodes. So I don't have all that set up, but you'll get the idea here. So anyway, so we're going to be using gen inventory, generic inventory, and I have a couple here already. So this is the one. This is kind of my test one. So let's create a new one, new report style, and we're gonna call this bad boy. Let's see, MNEUG 2. Is that what I called it? Oh yeah, inventory label. Okay, the report type, change that to be bartender label. We'll leave the data definition for now. Report location, I'm just going to put junk in there, and the output, I'm going to put junk in there for now too. output. Oh, I suppose I have to have. Let's try that. There we go. All right, so let me come back up here, and I'm just gonna select all this because I'm lazy. I'll explain this in a minute. And then this one, put in the location, and we'll save that. All right, so the report location is the actual location on the server where the bartender exists. So if we look in on my local machine, right, not remote, but this is on my local machine, and we look at that path, we go to Program Files, what is it, Seagull, Bartender, Labels. That's the location for the label. So this path here. So that's what needs to go in this report location. So, and in the output location, that's going to point to, let's see, it's actually, that's on the server itself, on the Epicor 3 data folder. And I create a folder called Bartender, and then that's where the text file is going to go. It's kind of the equivalent of the XML. If you know the whole Crystal Reports XML relationship, this is very similar, except it's not XML. It's just it's a text file. It's a CSV text file. So, all right. So let me go back to report style. Okay. So here's my report style. I could go with the generic inventory data definition, but I'm not going to do that. I try to. Chances are we're going to want an extra field, so you may as well just go ahead and make one. So you can, hopefully you can see what I did there. You just right-click on data definition, go into Open With, Report Data Def, say Actions, duplicate the report, and let me here make sure I follow my script here. All right, so we're going to call this Gen Inventory MNEUG 2 and MNEUG 2. Say OK to that. Okay. This takes a little time to all right. So there's 5 tables and there's 4 relationships associated with this, with our data definition. So here's what I do. These relationships are really set up. They're set up in a way that I don't like, because they're set up to go part train to part bin and part warehouse. There can be multiple warehouses, multiple bins. You end up getting duplicate records. You know, for what we're going to be doing, we should really only have one record, right? I mean, there aren't going to be multiple. So, you know, this is a generic a data definition that Epicor set up for us. So, first thing I recommend doing, just delete them all. right, there's one. Hopefully these others will go just a little bit quicker. Okay, we're getting there. And one more. All right, so let's add them back in. We really only need two. It's going to be, first one is part tran, to company. Part tran to company. That's going to be part tran. External foreign key, part tran to company, and this is going to be a definition only. That's an inner join. There we go. Companies, it fills in company for us. All right, and we'll add one more, and this is going to be part tran to part. Part tran to part. Part tran to part. Okay, same thing. Part tran to part. And this should always be, that's to be an inner join. There we go. There's only going to be one part number per, yeah, yep, it's going to be inner join. All right, so there's our, let's go up to part, and the one I like bringing over, although we won't get a chance to really program this, is called the, where are you? Here we go. Parts per container. That's excluded, so we're going to include that. So by sending this through, what you can do is you can say the container holds 100. So if I'm going to ship 150, then I need 2 boxes, right? Because one box is going to get 100, the other box is going to get 50. And that math is done at the bartender level. But it has to know what to use as a factor, and that's where the parts per container comes in. So, all right. That is taking some time. All right. So let's go. We can close out of that. Let's refresh this screen. And let's find here our gen inventory. There we go. All right. Okay. All right. Did that. Did that. Okay. All right. So we're basically done with this, with the style now. So the next step is to add a printer. And I've kind of already done that here, so I'm just going to bring it up. I'm not going to create a new one. I called it Devo Zebra. So, and the only thing that's really, you can, I know you see this paper size and kind, you see that as letter. Obviously, if I'm running a 4x6 label, I don't need a letter size, but it doesn't matter. And the reason why is that the only thing this thing is going to give us is this path right here, and this is the UNC path to the shared printer, the one I don't have hooked up that we can't use. So, but I'll show you where that shows up, later. So, so for now, just add a printer, give it whatever name you want. This path is critical. That has to be correct. But this other stuff, it doesn't really matter, right? Because like I said, this is the only thing that's gonna get used in this whole screen. This as far as Bartender is concerned. So, okay, so we've added the report style, the data definition, and the printer. And so now it's time to go into the BPMs. Okay, so let's go down to Business Process Management. This can stop moving. There we go. And we want to go to Data Directives. And then we're going to go actually, you might want to do new. I already have one here, so I'm just going to go to Part Tran. All right, and let's turn this off for now. So let's do a new standard directive, and we're going to call this inventory label 2. Inventory label 2. Save that. Go into the design. Okay, so we're going to add a condition, and we're going to add an auto print. So let's connect them up. Start to there, there into there. All right, so for we've got the plumbing done here. So for the condition, we're going to say, click on the little piece of paper here. It says, give me a new condition. And if we click the down arrow, it gives a list, and we want the specified field of the changed row is equal to the specified expression. There's a lot of options here, but this is the one I'm going to use. Okay, so for the specified field, we are going to want the tran type. Yep, tran type of the changed row is equal to specified expression is going to be double quote manufacturing to stock. And we say OK. That's pretty much it for the condition. All right, so let's go to the auto print. Now let me update my yep. Okay, so for auto print, automatically print specified report. So we're going to change this to bartender labels and change this to part tran is used by the report, just to keep the list kind of short. And here's our MNEUG2 style. Okay. Then we click on the with specified options. Click on the specified. And here you can see it's using the correct style and the correct data definition. Yes, it is a bartender label. Run schedules immediate, which is correct. If you're a SaaS customer, that needs to be queued. And for the printer, you need to use the printer that we added, right? The Davo Zebra. Now you could use the quantity here, and there's a function here for dynamic quantities. If you've got a place in your database that says, this transaction uses whatever. Matter of fact, if you wanted to, for the parts per container, technically, maybe you always need 5 labels, per container. Well, that's a bad example. Anyways, you can point this to databases. For instance, here I can go to part, and then I can find maybe a UD field or some other numeric field, part height, right? So the print quantity is going to be equal to whatever the part height is. So now we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. You can do that, but I think you have a little more flexibility at the bartender level, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But so for now, I'm going to say that looks good. Now we have to go over to report parameters, and here we need to add in for part num. I'm not even sure this is required, but I do it anyways. Specified table and field value. Part tran is and we want part num, right? So part num is equal to part num. System time, we want to set that to be, again, it's coming from TT part tran temp table. Here's our sys time. And for the tran num, we'll do the same thing. And this is tran num right there. Okay, and one more is company. And company. Okay, and that's really all we need. And it's tough. You would say, well, what about this one, parts? Well, I don't know what parts is. I don't have any clue where that's coming from, and it might even make it fail. I don't know. You'll have to experiment with this. Some of it is okay. Epicor is going after unique records, right? So company and tran number you'd think would be enough, but systime and part number I believe need to be in there for this. So anyways, this works. If you want to experiment, and if you can tell me it does, I don't need all that, then I'll stop doing it. But for now, I know this works. So all right, so we've got all that. We got report options, report parameters. We'll say okay. Valid print quantity. Oh, gotta go back. Here, gotta have at least one. All right. So next step to that. Okay. So we're up to save and exit. Let's enable the BPM. Okay. All right. So let's close out of that. So now we're ready to create a transaction. So let's go to, I don't need job management. I need material management. Boy, that animation. There's a way to turn that animation off. I don't remember what it is. I'll bet Don knows. He knows everything. Oops. Okay, my mind wandered there. We want inventory management, general operations, job receipt to inventory, all right, so let's see. So the job I've set up is 131987. 131987. Oops. 131987. Here we go. Assembly 0. Quantity, I'll say 2. Quantity exceeds maximum completed for this. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, it's manufacturing. Bin is 1. All right, so let me put in a Devo sample parts. All right, we'll say okay. And hopefully we'll get a little balloon here. There it is. It says generic inventory is complete with status. Okay, so I didn't print anything. All I did was say, here's the job receipt to inventory, and you can see in the background, a little bubble came up and I said, hey, I printed something. So, all right. So, yep, made past that. All right. So the next step is let's take a peek at that, which is going to be in here. And here's our guy that was just created. So let me delete this. That's just in the way. And I'm going to take our file, copy it, and paste it right in place here. And we'll change this to be a text file and change the name to Gen Inventory. Is that what I called it? Yep. All right, so the next thing we want to do is open up this file. This is like the kind of the equivalent of the XML. So the thing is, the way Bartender works, or the way is that it's kind of pre-allocated. The first 2 lines are part of a command structure, and as part of that command structure, you can see where it's passing the AF, which is that's the actual bartender label, right? There's our label name. Then over here under the printer PRN equals, you can see where it passes that. So you can see why that paper size really didn't mean anything, because all that Epicor does is it says, hey, use this label and print to this printer. But since we're going to be creating a new label, these commands actually just get in the way. So I'm going to delete those so we have a clean file, and then we'll save it. And I'll minimize that. All right. So the next step is going to be to go into Bartender. And we are going to, I'll close that. We'll just say new. I'm going to create a new barcode. And I will just take the default printer, which is a, Office Tab Pro. That's probably gonna change. Okay, we're gonna want to do custom settings, page size, 4x6 is fine. We want rectangles, top and bottom here, 1 and 1. Don't need background colors. We say finish. Okay, so here's our blank label. And excuse me while I skip ahead in my notes here, just so I can keep on track. Okay. All right, so the next thing is for this label to show data, we need to connect it to a database. So we're going to right click on the database fields, database connection setup, a little wizard. We say we want to use a text file, name of the text file. So we're going to say select the file, and let's go off to our folder, which is in Bartender. There's our generic inventory. Say next. Mixed quote in comma is going to be that's the parameter to use. Is the first record of the text file a header that contains names of fields? Yes, it is. So we do a finish. It's going to show there's all of the fields, and here's our tables. There's the part tran table, company table, part table. Right? If we wanted to include more, we could have. So, and where's the field that we added? Parts per container, right there. So, and if you go to the browse, it's going to, there we go. You can see that we have just one record, and there's the field names with the data associated with the field names. So, all right, so we'll say okay. That's going to attach or associate, right, that database and those fields. So the next thing is, I wish you could drag and drop it. They really don't. They don't let you do that. So we want to create a text, single line text. We're just gonna throw it on here, and I'm gonna do that twice. Create text, single line, and we'll throw it here. Alright, so what we do now is let's go into properties for this one, and let's set the data source first. Here, yep. So we're going to click on this little change data source. We want this to be a database field, and we are going to pick our we can get it from part or part tran, doesn't really matter. Let's pick this time around, let's pick part tran. Part tran, part num. and I would set this as part number. Okay. And then the next thing I like to do is under text format, set the auto size to be both, we'll say 14. So, and yeah, that allows us to resize this. Because if I take this thing and resize it, see what it does? Changes the font size. So we'll do the same. We'll do the same thing with this thing, and we'll go to properties, auto size. We'll say 14 and 14, and let's connect this up to the database. And we want this to be, let's go to part tran quantity. Okay. And we'll finish that. Okay. Tran quantity. And this one we're going to change the data type to a number. And now we can set the number of decimals. We'll just say 1 decimal. Close it. So now you can see that doesn't resize it. So then what we do is let's save this. We're going to save it as. Oops, I'm going to skip the head there. Got that. That. All right. So we're going to save this to my location, MNEUG 2, and yeah, we'll just say go ahead and replace it. All right, and then the last step for this is to go into the commander. Here, commander. And I already have one here. We'll just go into the properties. So for this, if you have to set up a new one, I just call this get Epicor file. It's a file trigger. You tell it what folder to scan. So you can see here, I was browsing to the location where the files are. It's going to scan for star.bts, then it's going to rename it to btw, and under the command tab, you say that this is a command script. These are the options: Bartender operating system, save to file. What we want is command script. So, and we'll say OK to that. And this is off right now, but if let me see if we can get both of these in place here. I'll set that down here. So here's oh, looks like it already did it. Yeah, that's from, oops, And this too. We'll delete that. Okay, it must have kicked off when I saved it. Let's do that again. Let's go to job receipt inventory, and it's $131,987. 131,987. Okay, we're gonna do this time. We'll do 3. Yes. Test. Manufacturing warehouse. Bin 1. We'll say okay. Should give us the balloon. Yep, there you can see it just showed up. There's the BT file. So now if we go back to Commander and we say, okay, run this bad boy. You can see what it did. It took this guy, changed it to BTW, and now it's going to try and run this script. So, and that normally would, you know, you let this thing run. You set this up to run as a service, right? When you set this up, properties. Yeah. This is set up as a service to run, so it's constantly running. And when it finds a file, it processes it and sends it out. So, and this typically runs on a server, a Bartender server. So it doesn't take much. So that goes pretty quick. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So unfortunately, there's a lot of pieces that go together. If you're a SaaS customer, there's an additional step if you want to use Bartender labels, because rather than the Epicor can't put the text file on your servers, right? It doesn't have access to the firewall and all that happy stuff. So what happens there is Epicor puts it off into an FTP folder, and then you use an FTP program that acts kind of like this Commander thing. So then you'll have two programs. You still need Commander, but you'll have an FTP program that searches this Epicor FTP site, and when it finds a file, it puts it into the watch folder that the Commander is looking at, and then the Commander will process it just like normal. So there's an additional setup there. If you're a SaaS customer, it takes a while for all these pieces to be set up properly, right? Because like you saw, the path that I had, I think only works with the 64-bit version of Bartender. There's a 32-bit. If you go 32-bit, then you have to use the DOS 8.3 format for naming your files and folders. So things can get a little tricky. But what I found is that this script is, if you need to debug what's going on, this works pretty well. I just wish you could copy and paste it, but you really can't. So what I found and done in the past is I've just gone into Notepad and just kind of type it all in. You type it all in, and then you can run this from a command window, and you'll get a little more feedback on what's not working. Path not found, printer not available, that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much it, guys. Save changes no, I didn't want to make changes. Save changes. So I know I kind of flew through that, and that was a lot to digest. I don't know. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Then we're gonna say that's a done deal. Thank you for listening. Where's my